Picture the absolute eerie quiet of early morning in eastern Kentucky. Like, imagine a sprawling, wealthy estate sitting completely silent on Arkansas Creek Road.
Right. Just totally isolated.
Exactly. Inside this house, 6 people have just returned from a night of heavy drinking. But fast forward just a few hours, the sun comes up, and the interior of that house has become a literal nightmare.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. One person is dead on the living room couch with a brutally severed throat. Another person is wandering the upstairs halls, completely disoriented and covered in blood. And get this, the home's security cameras, the very ones pointed directly at the scene of the crime, have been surgically ripped from the walls.
It's just a profoundly chilling image.
Yeah.
When you walk into a scene like that as an investigator, the environment instantly tells a story.
Right, speaks volumes.
It really does.
Yeah.
Whatever happened in that room wasn't just a sudden, uncontrollable tragedy. I mean, it is a chaotic burst of violence followed by a deeply calculated, methodical response.
And that response is exactly what we are untangling today. Welcome to our deep dive into the notorious case of 38-year-old Amber Spradlin.
We've got a lot to cover today.
We really do. We've pulled together a massive stack of sources for you. We've got investigative breakdowns, court records, 9/11 transcripts, and local reporting. And our mission today is to act as your shortcut to being well-informed on this story.
Yeah, we are reconstructing the missing hours of June 18th, 2023 in Floyd County, Kentucky.
Because we need to understand not just a murder, but the complex mechanics of forensic backlogs, civil conspiracy, and a grieving family's fight against a literal two-tier justice system.
Well, to really understand the mechanics of this case, we have to start with the sociology of Floyd County.
Okay, set the stage for us.
So eastern Kentucky is renowned for its tight-knit communities, right? But it is also an area heavily burdened by severe poverty.
Right.
And from an investigative standpoint, widespread economic struggle creates a very specific power vacuum. The few families who hold the local wealth, they hold massive outsized influence.
Because they're the ones providing the jobs.
Exactly. They are the major employers, the landlords, the medical providers. That extreme disparity in power isn't just background context here. It is the actual engine driving the decisions made on the morning of the murder.
Which makes the victim's presence in that house all the more fascinating, honestly. So let's talk about Amber Spradlin.
Yeah, her background is so important here.
It is. She had endured an incredibly difficult life. By her early 20s, she had suffered the loss of her mother, her sister, and her father.
That is just an unimaginable volume of tragedy.
It really is, and it left her with debilitating anxiety. For years, she stayed sheltered with her grandparents. She basically survived on routine, like she called her Aunt Missy every single morning at 9:00 a.m. sharp. That was her tether to safety.
And in victimology, a strict, unbreakable routine like that is a crucial data point.
How so?
Well, when a victim is highly routine-oriented, their absence is an immediate glaring alarm bell. A missed 9:00 a.m. phone call from someone like Amber signals to her family that something is catastrophically wrong.
Right, they know right away it's not just her sleeping in.
Exactly. But by 2023, at 38 years old, Amber was finally starting to step out of her comfort zone. She got her own place. She started working as a hostess at a popular Prestonburg restaurant called Brick House.
Which brings us to the night of Saturday, June 17th. Amber decides to invite an acquaintance, a 51-year-old radiology tech named Roy Kidd, out for drinks at a bar called Seasons Inn. And the bar owner's brother happens to be drinking with them. His name is Dr. Michael McKinney II. He is a 55-year-old, incredibly wealthy local dentist.
And he's a major player in town.
Oh, absolutely. He also happens to own the Brick House restaurant, meaning he is actually Amber's boss.
Right.
So at 4 a.m., the bar is well past closing time, and Michael invites a small group back to his estate for an after-party. It's Amber, Roy, Michael's 23-year-old son, MK, a basement tenant named Josh, and Josh's girlfriend, Lauren.
That's the group that goes back to the house.
Yeah, those 6 people. But here's my question for you, because this really stuck out to me. Why does a woman with severe anxiety, who is incredibly protective of her routine, go to an after-party at 4 a.m. with a group of older men?
That's a great question. And it usually comes down to a psychological phenomenon known as the halo effect, combined with perceived authority.
The halo effect.
Yeah. In a small town, a wealthy doctor who owns multiple businesses is seen as a pillar of the community. Add to that the corporate hierarchy. I mean, he is literally her employer.
So she sees him as safe.
Exactly. To Amber, getting an invite to the McKinney estate was likely the small-town equivalent of being pulled behind the velvet rope at a VIP Hollywood party,
Wow.
but with the added psychological safety net of being with her boss.
Wow, yeah.
Her brain likely told her, "This man employs me, he's a respected doctor, I am safe." The perceived authority basically temporarily overrode her natural survival instincts.
Yeah, that makes total sense. But that illusion of safety shatters once they relocate to the basement of the McKinney house.
It really does.
This brings us to the chronological timeline of Sunday morning. And I want to walk through the mechanics of what happens next with you because the anomalies are just staggering.
The timeline is wild. Let's get into it.
Okay, so just before 6:40 a.m., MK, the 23-year-old son, calls 911. He tells dispatch that Roy is completely intoxicated and bleeding profusely, and he needs to be taken to the drunk tank.
Right, a medical call.
But before dispatch can even mobilize, Michael, the father, gets on the phone. He physically takes the phone and verbally cancels the call, telling the dispatcher, "I've got this under control. No response is needed."
Just shuts it down.
Yes, start right there. How does a dispatcher legally just say, "Okay, never mind," to a medical emergency because a third party said so?
I know it sounds crazy, but it exposes a massive vulnerability in standard operating procedures for emergency dispatch.
Really? How does that work?
Well, in many rural counties, dispatchers are dealing with severely limited resources. Like maybe they only have 1 or 2 patrol cars for an entire sector.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So unless a caller reports a confirmed felony in progress, dispatchers often have to triage. If the homeowner takes the phone and calmly asserts that the situation is a non-lethal, private matter, like an intoxicated guest who simply fell cade, the dispatcher is actually legally permitted to clear the call to keep resources open.
That is terrifying.
It is. But from an investigative perspective, the father physically intercepting the phone from his son establishes a really damning behavioral pattern.
That they handle things internally.
Exactly. It shows the McKinneys manage their own crises, totally outside the purview of the law.
And it leaves a massive blind spot for what actually occurred around 6:00 a.m. Because according to witness statements, things supposedly quiet down after that canceled call.
Supposedly.
Right. Between 6:00 and 7:00 a.m., Roy stumbles upstairs to pass out in a bedroom. Lauren and Josh go to sleep in the basement. And Lauren claims that when she left the living room, Amber was alive, well, and resting on the couch.
Okay, so let's look at the math there. That means by 7:00 a.m., the only people unaccounted for are Michael and his son, MK. That drastically narrows our suspect pool. We have 2 conscious men and 1 sleeping woman.
So then, at 8:30 a.m., neighborhood surveillance captures MK's blue truck leaving the area.
Okay.
Then we hit 10:30 a.m. Amber is lying dead on the couch. But Michael McKinney does not dial 911. Instead, he picks up his phone and makes an 8-minute call to Randy Woods.
And who is Randy Woods?
Randy Woods is the off-duty chief of police for Prestonburg.
Wow.
Yeah, wait, let me pause you there because Prestonburg is a completely different jurisdiction. The McKinney house is in Martin, Kentucky.
Oh, man.
Is there any legitimate, innocent reason a homeowner finds a brutalized body in their living room and spends 8 full minutes chatting with a police chief from the next town over?
0. I mean, there is no innocent operational mechanism that explains that call.
Right.
If you are a terrified innocent person, human instinct drives you to dial the 3 universal numbers for emergency help. You do not scroll through your contacts for a specific buddy in law enforcement who doesn't even have jurisdiction over your house.
It's just absurd.
In municipal power structures, this is exactly how local oligarchs operate. They don't call the system to report a crime. They call their peers to manage the fallout.
And 8 minutes is a long time.
It's a lifetime in an emergency. An 8-minute duration is more than enough time to strategize, seek legal advice, or align a narrative before the official record begins.
And it isn't until 10:37 a.m. that Michael finally dials 911, and the transcript of this call is baffling.
What does he say?
He tells the dispatcher, "There's a girl on my couch that's dead. Looks like somebody's come into the house and murdered her. Her throat slit. There's blood everywhere."
Okay.
But when first responders arrive, the visual reality of the scene completely contradicts his statement.
This is where forensic observation tears a massive hole in the official story.
Yes, tell them about the couch.
Right. So Amber was found sitting upright, slumped forward. She had been stabbed 12 times, but her slumping posture completely concealed the devastating wound to her neck.
Wow.
Yeah, first responders officially noted that you could not see her throat was slit just by standing in the room.
So how did Michael know her throat was slit before the police even moved her body?
Precisely. It suggests he had intimate, up-close knowledge of the trauma before making that call.
Because there's no way he just glanced at the couch and saw it.
Exactly. And the sheer physical force of the attack adds another layer of complexity here. She was stabbed with such brutal velocity that the metal blade of the knife actually snapped off.
Oh my God.
It remained deeply embedded in her cervical spine.
Which introduces the most calculated aspect of the entire morning, the missing evidence.
Right, the cleanup.
Because investigators didn't find a broken knife handle on the floor. Instead, they found a completely intact, different knife deliberately shoved into the cushions of the couch next to Amber. The actual handle matching the blade in her neck had completely vanished.
Along with the digital eyes of the house.
Yes, the cameras.
Right. The McKinneys had a robust security system with cameras pointed directly at the living room couch and the basement bar. By the time law enforcement crossed the threshold, those cameras were gone.
Just totally gone.
The DVR system was detached. The hard drive storing the footage had been meticulously unhooked, removed, and spirited away from the property.
That is just, it's so brazen. Let's contrast that surgical precision with our other major player here, Roy.
Oh, Roy.
Yeah. Roy wakes up between 7 points and 9:00 a.m., entirely covered in his own blood from a drunken fall, as well as his own urine and feces.
Just completely incapacitated.
Completely disoriented. He later takes a police polygraph and fails it spectacularly on 4 major questions, including, did you stab her?
Which is obviously a huge red flag.
Right. And the defense team for the McKinneys points heavily at Roy, noting his failed polygraph and the fact that his phone was found near Amber's body.
Look, a failed polygraph certainly casts a dark shadow. But let's break down the physical mechanics of this crime scene.
Please do.
A man who is a 10 out of 10 drunk, who is literally covered in his own waste, lacks basic motor function. Erasing a digital footprint requires fine motor skills and cognitive sequencing.
You have to know what you're doing.
Exactly. You have to locate the DVR, systematically detach the power and data cables, extract the hard drive, locate a secondary weapon to plant in the couch, and successfully dispose of the primary murder weapon and the electronics.
Right.
A blackout drunk person is entirely incapable of executing a tech-savvy multi-step cover-up. That level of sanitization requires a sober, rational, adrenaline-fueled mind.
That fundamentally shifts how we view the scene. It transforms it from a messy drunken brawl into a highly coordinated conspiracy.
It really does.
And the physical evidence trailing MK backs that up. 3 days post-murder, MK goes to the state police to give a DNA sample. Investigators immediately photograph fresh, parallel scratch marks trailing down both of his arms. They look exactly like defensive claw marks.
Because Amber fought for her life. The autopsy confirmed severe defensive wounds on her hands, and the medical examiner successfully collected biological material from deep under her fingernails.
Which is huge. But this is where the momentum of the investigation just slams into a brick wall. It takes 8 agonizing months for the Kentucky State Police Crime Lab to process that single DNA swab.
8 months.
8 months. How does a high-profile murder case with a suspect's DNA under the victim's fingernails sit in a queue for almost a year?
It basically comes down to the chronic underfunding of state forensic infrastructure. You see, state crime labs do not operate like the rapid-fire labs you see on television.
Right. It's not CSI.
Not at all. They suffer from severe staffing shortages and just overwhelming volume. Because of this, they utilize a mechanism called batch processing.
What does that mean?
They wait until they have a large enough quantity of similar biological samples from multiple cases across the entire state. Then they run them all at once through the chemical reagents, which are, incredibly expensive.
So if you're the first one in the batch.
If your sample arrives at the wrong time in the fiscal cycle, it just sits in a freezer. It is a bureaucratic bottleneck that paralyzes justice.
Wow. Well, when that result finally clears the bottleneck 8 months later, it is a YSTR match to the McKinney paternal line.
This is a crucial piece of evidence.
It is, and I want to make sure we understand the exact science here, because MK's defense attorney claims this is incredibly weak evidence.
Well, the defense will always attack YSTR, but let's explain how it actually works. Think of standard autosomal DNA like a license plate. If you run it, it gives you the exact, unique vehicle.
Okay.
YSTR testing is different. It isolates the Y chromosome, which is passed virtually unchanged from father to son. So YSTR isn't a license plate. It's the make and model of the car.
How that makes sense.
Right. It tells investigators, definitively, a McKinney man left this DNA under her fingernails. It cannot differentiate between Michael the father and MK the son.
But they were the only 2 McKinney men in the house.
Exactly. So since they were the only 2 McKinney men in that house, It locks the suspect pool in a vice grip.
Armed with that make and model, the scratch marks, and the timeline of his truck leaving the scene, MK is officially charged with Amber's murder and 8 counts of evidence tampering.
A massive step forward.
Yes. Michael and the basement tenant, Josh, are also charged with evidence tampering. The prosecution's mechanical theory is straightforward. MK committed the murder, and then the three of them operated as a unit to bleach the sinks, dismantle the camera network, and vanish the knife handle before the other guests woke up.
And Michael McKinney's counterargument is that he is basically the victim of a localized witch hunt.
Right.
He claims the timeline is circumstantial, that the YSTR could just be transferred DNA from Amber simply resting on a family couch, and that social media has contaminated the jury pool to the point of ruining his family's reputation.
But the community's outrage on social media isn't just about the McKinneys. It's rooted in a deep historical distrust of local law enforcement.
Which brings us back to that phone call.
Yes, that 8-minute phone call to Chief Randy Woods. According to Amber's cousin, early on in the investigation, Chief Woods told a family friend that Amber wasn't murdered at all.
Are you kidding me?
Nope. He allegedly claims she just aspirated on her own vomit and that the family needed to, quote, settle down.
Which is just an astonishing narrative to push when the medical examiner has a body with a severed throat and a knife blade lodged in the cervical spine.
Right.
It reveals a chilling reflex within the municipal power structure to instantly minimize violence when wealth is involved.
Right.
And we have to look at the fallout here. Just 5 days after Amber's murder, Chief Woods abruptly resigned.
5 days.
Yeah. He cited the emotional toll of a previous tragedy, but the timing, coupled with his involvement in that 10:30 a.m. phone call, raises massive red flags about his operational integrity.
It really paints a terrifying picture of a two-tier justice system, and for Amber's family, this isn't even their first encounter with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Amber's own mother, Sharon, died under highly suspicious circumstances back in 1988 in a Prestonburg bar. She was found hanging from a window, and the local authorities rapidly closed it out as an accident.
Wow.
And they aren't alone. Our sources point to Kristen Smith, a 33-year-old mother found dead in Martin in 2021 while dating a local official. That was quickly ruled a suicide. Candy Green Gonzalez vanished the very same day.
The sociological pattern here is just impossible to ignore.
It's a trend.
The locals believe there is an established playbook in Floyd County. Vulnerable women meet tragic ends under murky circumstances, and the local authorities close ranks, seal the files, and let the cases gather dust to protect their economic peers.
But the sheer brutality of Amber's case broke the playbook. I mean, it was too graphic to sweep away, yet justice is still stalled.
Because of the labs.
Yep. The trial is delayed because the state crime lab is still so backlogged that 33 additional items of evidence are currently sitting on shelves waiting for analysis. MK sits in jail, but Michael McKinney is out on house arrest. He is still legally allowed to operate his dental practice and run his restaurant.
The optics of that for the grieving family must be absolutely agonizing.
Unbearable. But they are utilizing a different legal mechanism to force accountability. Amber's family has filed a massive civil suit alleging negligence and civil conspiracy against the McKinneys, Roy Kidd, Chief Woods, and the police department.
That's a huge undertaking.
It is. How does a family actually prove a police department is liable in a civil conspiracy?
Well, it requires proving a systemic failure in the duty of care. In a civil conspiracy, the burden of proof is slightly lower than in criminal court.
Okay.
You don't have to prove they wielded the knife. You have to prove they intentionally colluded to obstruct the truth or failed to enact their mandated duties. So the family is arguing that a recent poorly managed switch in the 911 dispatch systems left the county vulnerable. They basically had to demonstrate mechanically that if the police dispatch had functioned correctly and officers had responded to MK's 6 a.m. call overriding Michael's verbal cancellation, law enforcement would have entered that house while Amber was still alive.
Wow. And they are also fighting to fix the underlying forensic rot. The family is lobbying the state legislature to pass Amber's Law, which would aggressively mandate funding increases for state crime labs.
That would be incredible.
The goal is to eliminate the batch processing bottleneck so no family ever waits 8 months for a basic DNA read again. And this Justice for Amber Facebook page has evolved into a full-blown clearinghouse. Citizens across eastern Kentucky are using it to post names, cross-reference evidence, and demand investigations into their own forgotten cases.
When you step back and view this case from 30,000 feet, It serves as a stark, sobering lesson on the fragility of the justice system.
It really does.
We consume so much media that portrays forensics and law enforcement as this impenetrable, flawless machine. But the reality is that the machine is operated by human beings. In small towns, justice relies entirely on the integrity of the dispatcher who answers your call and the first responder who steps onto your porch.
Yeah, that's true.
If the local power dynamics dictate that the people in charge look the other way, the machine doesn't just stall, it actively works against you.
It becomes a weapon of suppression. And that brings me to a final, deeply unsettling thought for you to consider as we wrap up.
What's that?
The only reason we are talking about Amber Spradlin today is because of the sheer, uncontrollable violence of the act. The knife blade literally broke off in her neck. The forensic evidence was undeniable. But what if the horrific tragedy in that house hadn't been so overtly visceral?
Right.
What if the tech-savvy removal of the cameras had been paired with a weapon that didn't snap? If the cover-up had been just 10% cleaner, would Amber have simply been written off as another tragic aspiration in Floyd County?
It's a terrifying thought.
It forces us to ask, across thousands of isolated municipalities globally, how many secret ledgers of covered-up crimes are currently hiding in plain sight, protected by wealth, just waiting for the perpetrator to leave behind one tiny broken piece of evidence?
It is a haunting reality to acknowledge. The difference between a tragic accident and a covered-up murder often isn't the evidence itself. It's the social influence of the person trying to hide it.
We will definitely keep tracking the civil suit and the trial as they unfold. Keep your eyes open, look past the official narratives, and never stop demanding the truth. This has been The Deep Dive.